At 3:16 local time, the pre-dawn stillness over a field camp in Kursk Oblast was broken by the whine of two AL-31F turbofan engines spooling up. Ground crews in reflective vests scrambled around the hulking fuselage of a Su-34 Fullback, Russia's twin-seat fighter bomber. Under the belly, four 500-kilogram FAB 500 bombs fitted with UMPK glide kits were secured to hardpoints. The UMPK was Russia's latest workaround for a shortage of precision-guided weapons. It added pop-out wings and a satellite navigation kit to otherwise unguided bombs. Despite its improvisational nature, the kit allowed the Su-34 to launch from 40 to 50 kilometers away and remain outside most tactical air defense envelopes. The pilot, Major Sergei Volkov, completed his final checks. The Su-34's 12 external hardpoints enabled a wide array of ordnance, but tonight it carried no air-to-air missiles. The mission was a quick in-and-out strike against a Ukrainian ammunition depot near Sloviansk that Russian reconnaissance drones had spotted 2 days earlier. Intelligence suggested dozens of trucks unloading artillery shells there each night. The Navigator Weapon Systems officer, Captain Alexei Doronin, tapped the inertial navigation system. With satellite guidance likely to be contested, he would have to manage manual updates during the bombing. The Su-34 rolled down the snow-dusted runway. Flames licked from the exhaust nozzles as Volkov pushed the throttles past military power. The full fuel load and 2 tons of munitions strained the landing gear, but at 250 kilometers per hour, the aircraft lifted gracefully into the blackness. Doronin retracted the gear and flaps and turned the aircraft southwest. The pair crossed 5,000 meters altitude, leveling at 7,500 meters to conserve fuel. Cloud cover was patchy, and occasional patches of moonlight illuminated the platypus-like nose of the aircraft. Doronin reviewed the route. They would fly 170 kilometers south of Belgorod, then swing west to a release point 45 kilometers northeast of Sloviansk. The UMPK kit's standoff guidance would handle the final glide. Each bomb's inertial/GNSS module had been loaded with coordinates before takeoff, but jamming was expected. If GLONASS degraded, the bombs would rely on inertial mid-course updates and a barometric altimeter. Ukrainian signals intelligence operators at a listening post near Kramatorsk detected increased radio chatter on Russian strike frequencies. They alerted Air Defense Command. Several P-18 Malachit early warning radars already operating near Kostiantynivka began sweeping the skies. The best chance of stopping glide bombs was to catch the launch aircraft before release, but Russian tactics had evolved. Experience over the past year showed that Su-34 crews preferred to remain outside the engagement envelope of Ukrainian Buk M1 and S-300 batteries. Patriots and NASAMs delivered by Western partners extended that envelope, but there were still gaps. Volkov throttled back slightly and began descending to 6,000 meters. This altitude would allow a shallower glide path for the UMPK bombs, increasing range. Doronin engaged the Kibini electronic countermeasures pod, emitting white noise across known Ukrainian search radar frequencies. On his multifunction display, 4 white boxes indicated weapon status. All bombs armed, guidance modules functioning. He toggled through bomb release profiles. Ripple sequence at 0.2 seconds intervals. The plan called for releasing all 4 in a single pass. Each 500-kilogram high-explosive bomb carried roughly 150 kilograms of HE filler, enough to trigger secondary detonations if they hit an ammunition stack. At the Ukrainian command post near Dnipro, Colonel Ivana Melnik studied plots of radar tracks. A single contact 200 kilometers northeast of Sloviansk showed behavior typical of a Su-34 strike. Steady altitude, high speed, jamming signature. She ordered a Patriot battery near Drushkivka to go into firing sequence. If the bomber crossed into envelope, they would engage. Volkov leveled the aircraft at 5,800 meters and trimmed for hands-off flight. Doronin activated the weapons panel. Release in 2 minutes, he called. They were 46 kilometers from the target. Clouds obscured the ground, but the radar altimeter worked fine. On the moving map, the target coordinates blinked. Doronin selected bomb 1, then set a ripple of 4. He cross-checked pitch and roll. They would maintain 0-degree bank to ensure bombs separated cleanly. The navigation computer announced release point. Doronin double-checked the heading, 210 degrees to target. Winds aloft were 20 meters per second from the northwest. He made minor corrections to account for drift. "Ready," he said. The Su-34 pitched gently as the sudden loss of mass altered its center of gravity. Volkov eased the stick to compensate and turned left to a heading of 090 degrees, beginning his egress. The jamming pod continued emitting. They were still inside potential Patriot range for at least another minute. The first UMPK bomb, now 100 meters below release altitude, stabilized into a shallow glide with a speed of roughly 240 meters per second. Its inertial guidance unit calculated a 45-kilometer glide path. It expected to impact in 3 minutes 5 seconds. The bombs used both GLONASS and GPS signals when available, but as they entered contested airspace, Ukrainian jammers flooded the spectrum. The bombs autonomously switched to inertial guidance using ring laser gyros. At the Ukrainian depot near Sloviansk, night shift workers heard distant aircraft engines but continued unloading crates of 152mm artillery shells into a warehouse. The site had seen sporadic attacks, but its location behind the forest belt made it difficult to spot. Without satellite updates, the Russians were relying on drone coordinates that might be days old. The Patriot battery near Drushkivka acquired a Su-34 in search radar. Lieutenant Grigory Petrov launched 2 GEMT missiles. The first missile climbed to 10 kilometers altitude and accelerated to Mach, however. Due to the Su-34's jamming and its rapid turn east, the missile's guidance computers struggled to maintain lock. Both interceptors arced skyward and exploded harmlessly at high altitude. The Su-34 continued its egress, now descending to 4,000 meters to reduce exposure. The first UMPK bomb crossed 20 kilometers range. Ukrainian Buk M1 radars near Kostiantynivka tracked the bomb's radar cross-section, but the weapon's small size and low altitude made engagement difficult. The Buk crew attempted to fire 9 M38 missiles, but their radar screens were cluttered by ground returns and electronic interference. They decided to hold fire to avoid wasting missiles and decoys. Volkov pushed the throttles forward and accelerated to 950 kilometers per hour. He lowered the aircraft to 3,500 meters using terrain masking from distant hills. The cabine pod switched frequencies randomly, making it hard for Ukrainian radar to maintain a stable track. They would be back over Russian territory in 3 minutes. The UMPK bombs descended through 2,000 meters altitude. A Ukrainian mobile 23mm anti-aircraft gun near the depot fired blindly at the sound of incoming objects. Tracer rounds streaked upward, but found no targets. The bombs were gliding silently. Their only audible signature was a faint whistle as they cut through the air. The first bomb's barometric fuse armed itself at 500 meters altitude. Inertial guidance indicated it was within 50 meters of the aim point. Without GNSS correction, drift errors of 30 to 50 meters were possible, but the target was a large warehouse. At 3:46:15, the bomb struck the roof of warehouse. The 150-kilogram key warhead detonated milliseconds later, blowing a 10-meter hole through the corrugated metal. Inside, hundreds of artillery shells and propellant charges ignited. A chain reaction of sympathetic detonations rippled through the building, creating a pressure wave that pushed out the concrete walls and threw debris into the night. Flames erupted. Secondary explosions continued. The second bomb impacted 30 meters north, hitting an open storage yard containing crates of Grad rockets. The blast set off dozens of rockets, some of which took flight unguided, arcing into nearby trees and fields before exploding. Workers ran for cover as burning debris rained down. The third bomb missed its intended warehouse and exploded in a ditch outside the perimeter fence. The blast created a crater, but caused minimal damage to stockpiles. The inertial drift combined with wind shear had pushed it off target. The fourth bomb impacted near a fuel depot adjacent to the ammunition site. The resulting explosion ignited diesel tanks, sending a plume of black smoke 300 meters into the sky. Flames spread quickly along fuel lines, threatening nearby vehicles. Back in the cockpit, Doronin observed a bright orange glow on the horizon behind him. Secondary explosions, he remarked. Their mission objective, striking the ammo dump, appeared successful. Volkov nodded and continued east, climbing to 6,000 meters. They were 30 kilometers from the border and out of Patriot range. Ukrainian fire crews at the depot attempted to contain the blaze. Ammunition cooked off sporadically, producing intermittent explosions. Colonel Melnick at the Operations Center received reports of large casualties among depot personnel. She lamented the loss, but noted that 3 of 4 bombs had hit, proving Russia's glide bomb tactic remained a threat. However, the story wasn't over. Ukrainian signals intelligence units triangulated the Su-34's jamming signal during its egress. An S-300 PS battery near Odessa, originally oriented toward the Black Sea, was repositioned days earlier to cover possible strike corridors. Technicians quickly rotated the 5N-63S engagement radar north and began tracking a target at 75-kilometer range. Altitude 6,000 meters, heading 085 degrees. The system calculated an intercept point. At 3:48:15, the battery commander authorized launch. 2 5V-55R missiles leapt from their launch tubes. Accelerating to Mach 6, they climbed to 25 kilometers before diving toward the Su-34. The bomber's Kibini pod detected their radar signals and attempted to jam them, but S-300 missiles used command guidance and home on reflected radar energy rather than the target's emissions. The Ronin's warning receiver screamed, "Missile launch!" he shouted. Volkov immediately rolled the aircraft into a steep dive toward 2,000 meters and deployed chaff. The Su-34's agility is respectable for its size. Its design is based on the Su-27 airframe. Volkov pulled 5G as he tried to spoil the missile's tracking. The first S-300 missile adjusted course, following the bomber's descent. At Mach 5, it closed the distance rapidly. At 3:48:45, the missile's proximity fuse detonated 40 meters behind the Su-34. Shrapnel tore through the right engine's exhaust nozzle and punctured the tail section. Warning lights flashed. "Right engine failure," the Ronin reported. Volkov retarded the damaged engine's throttle and leveled the aircraft at 1,500 meters. Black smoke trailed behind it. The second S-300 missile remained live. Volkov jettisoned the empty pylons and applied maximum power to the remaining engine. He turned south, hoping to exit the engagement envelope. At 3:48:55, the second missile detonated 30 meters off the left wing. Shrapnel peppered the wing but failed to sever any critical control surfaces. Nevertheless, the blast rocked the aircraft violently, causing a momentary loss of control. The Su-34 descended another 200 meters before Volkov recovered. Doronin looked back through the periscope and saw flames licking around the damaged right engine. Hydraulic pressure in System 2 dropped. They were still 15 kilometers from the border. "We're not going to make it," he said quietly. Ukrainian defenders on the ground watched as the Su-34 streaked eastward, trailing smoke. A team from the 28th Mechanized Brigade, armed with an American-made FIM-92. Stinger looked up. The Manpad's operator, Private Andriy Savchenko, shouldered the launcher and locked onto the hot plume of the left engine. He squeezed the trigger. The Stinger rocket accelerated away, guiding itself to the infrared signature. The Stinger struck the left engine exhaust. The impact tore the nacelle apart. Both engines now failed. Inside the cockpit, alarms blared. Volkov pulled the ejection handles. The K-36DM seats exploded upward, shattering the canopy. A fraction of a second later, parachutes deployed. The pilot and navigator drifted toward a field just inside Ukrainian territory. Their aircraft, now a burning hulk, continued forward another kilometer before crashing into a grove of trees and exploding. At the depot, Warehouse 4 collapsed entirely as ammunition continued to detonate. Thick smoke hung over the site. Ukrainian units began relocating remaining stockpiles to smaller dispersed caches to avoid similar losses. Radio intercepts from Russian channels reported loss of contact with call sign Plava 32, a Su-34. Rescue helicopters on the Russian side prepared to launch but held back. Ukrainian forces controlled the immediate area around the crash. Within hours, images of the downed Su-34 circulated on social media, showing the distinctive flattened nose and canard forepaws. Colonel Melnick reflected on the night's events. Russia had destroyed one ammunition warehouse and set fuel tanks ablaze, but at the cost of a modern fighter bomber and 2 experienced crew, now prisoners of war. With only around 100 Su-34 airframes in service and maximum payload capacity of 8,000 to 14,000 kilograms, Losing even one was a significant blow. It underscored how each glide bomb attack carried increasing risk as Ukrainian air defense networks tightened and learned from previous strikes. The hypothetical engagement illustrates the cat-and-mouse dynamics of the 2025 battlefield. Russia's Su-34 crews have adapted by using UMPK glide kits on older FAB series bombs to achieve standoff capability when true precision weapons are scarce. This allows them to stay outside of many short-range air defense systems, but not the extended reach of Western-supplied Patriots and S-300s. When Ukrainian forces triangulated the aircraft's jamming and coordinated multiple systems, the Su-34 was overwhelmed despite its electronic countermeasures. The loss of the bomber illustrates the danger of using a large, expensive platform to deliver relatively cheap ordnance. The ammo dump explosion inflicted immediate logistical damage, but the then-this-happened twist, losing the aircraft, turned a tactical success into a strategic setback.